Okay, let's take a look at how we can handle validation errors inside our registration form. And earlier on, what we did when we were testing validation errors from the API, we did actually create a validation errors component inside our errors feature here. And we can make use of this to display the validation errors from our register form on the register form component itself. And what we'll do is we'll take a look at how we can use this. And let's go back to our register form. It's getting quite busy at the top here. So I'm just going to open the register form and then let's just close the others. And what we want to do here, at the moment we've got inside, and it's quite busy here at the moment, but in our onSubmit method inside the formic element, we've got our set errors function. And when we get a problem coming back from our API, then we're throwing the error. And our error is going to be contained inside this parameter. So what we could do is just remove the text and set our error to error. This error here. Now, because this is the same name as the key that we're setting it to, we could actually shortcut this and we don't need to specify the error in there because it's the same name. Okay, so that's part one. What we need to do next is go down to where we've got our error message, and instead of a label here, what we're going to do is remove the label and replace it with our validation errors component. Now our validation errors component takes an errors property, and we're going to set this equal to error.error or errors.error. Now we're getting an error here because we gave our validation errors a type of either a string array or null. But our error is either a string or undefined. So what we'll need to do is we'll need to go to our validation errors components. Let's just open this. And we're going to get around this by cheating. We're going to use any for the type here. And because we're using any here, then our index property here implicitly has an any type. So we're going to be explicit about this and also give this an any type. And if we go back to our register form, then the errors have gone away. One other thing that we also need to do in order to display the validation errors, we also need to give our form an additional class of error. Otherwise, this will never appear inside our register form. So with this in place, let's go take a look. And I'll just refresh the page. And I've got a warning here that we'll deal with soon. But if I click on register, and let's just say test, and say test1, we'll give it a unique username, and we'll say test1 at test.com, but we'll use a weak password because we know this is going to fail validation on the API. And if I try and click on register, then we see our validation error appear inside our form. So how about if we do have a complex password? Let's change this password to a complex password, and let's change test1 to test, which we know is going to be a duplicate username. And let's try this. What happens this time? Well, this time we get an error. And that's because what we return from this request, if we take a look at the 400 bad request that we just received back there, and to do that, we're going to click on the request itself, go to the latest 400 that we've got back, and if we take a look at the response, the preview, then it's just a string of text. Now, errors.map is not a function, is because we're passing what should be a string array to our validation errors component, but our errors are not coming back from our API when it's just a duplicate username or a duplicate email address. We're just sending back a normal bad request with a string. Now we've got a few ways of going about this. We could check to see if the errors object or the errors is an array, and then we could do one thing if it's an array or another thing if it's a simple string. But what I want to do is show you a different way of returning a bad request for validation errors in our API. So we'll head back to VS Code, and what we'll do is we'll open up our accounts controller where we're returning these bad requests. And what we'll do for these type of validation errors, let's call these validation errors. The email is duplicated or the username is a duplicate. Now, this is what we're returning, and this is what's causing us the problem. But in the case that we've got a weak password, then we get a different kind of response back from our API. So how do we get around this then? Well, let's take a look. What we can do is we can manually add errors to our model state. When we've got a validation error, we've got an object called model state available inside our API controllers that contains the states of the model and of model binding validation. So we can use this model states object, and this has an add model error method. And inside here we can specify a key and a value. So we could say that email is a key, and then we can say email taken as a value. And then instead of returning a bad request, what we could do here is say return bad request and pass in a model state. And let's take a look at how this looks in Postman when we return a bad request with our model state. And let's go across to Postman and let's find the register user with a duplicate email. And if I click on send, then this time we get a 400 bad request, but we've got our errors displayed in this format, which is fine to a point, but what we really want is our errors to be returned in exactly the same format as we see here. We want an errors object along with the array of errors so that we can easily format them inside our register form. So there's another thing that we can do inside our API, and instead of returning a bad request, what we can do is return a validation problem. And if we go back to Postman and take another look and try and register a duplicate email address, this time we get the full response the same way that we do with any other validation errors, and we get this errors object as well, along with the model state error that we manually added. Now that's what we're looking for. And if we go back to VS Code one more time, and we'll just do the same thing for the duplicate email, we'll say model state, and add model error, and we'll say username, and we'll say username taken. And then we can just do the same thing again. We can just return a validation problem. And what we should be able to do now is go back to VS Code. Let's just refresh this page. And we'll try and register once again. And let's just add test as a display name. We'll add test as the username. We'll say test1 at test.com. And we'll add a valid password. And if we try and click on register, this time we get our username taken in the correct format in our register component. That's what we're looking for here. And what this means is that we've completed our client-side and login feature in our application. And we're all set up to move on to the next phase of our application, which is joining our activities and our users together. But first of all, let's just make sure we haven't left anything nasty inside our console. And I believe there's only one warning in my case. In our register form, we've just got a single unused import. So let's take a look at that and just remove the label from inside there. And as we're at the end of this section, we'll just save our changes into source control. So I'll save or stage all of these changes, and we'll say end of section 13. And we'll commit these and we'll push them on up to GitHub. And we'll wrap up this section with a short summary.